recording on the mixer. 5, 4, 3.
Hey, and welcome to the Drive Your Line podcast. This is where we talk about everything karting, all aspects, chassis, engines, manufacturers, rules, races, series, and so much more. Be sure to come back and listen. Man, I love that intro tune. That's awesome. We did well. Hey, welcome back for 2.0 of the Drive Your Line podcast this evening. I'm your host, Christy Kendall, and we are being joined, and this will be a short intro, but we are being joined by Charles Demersion, the president of Tillotson Ltd., PVL Ignitions, Tillotson Racing, and he's going to share a lot about the history of Tillotson, how it got started, where it got started, how well it's come along, how did it end up from the United States into Ireland, and what is its current status today and its involvement within motorsports, specifically karting. So, Charles, welcome once again.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
And we have sound. Yay.
Yeah, for now.
So thank you for trying this again. We had a little technical difficulty, so I do apologize. We had a photograph up that was a vintage photo, and we had asked, who is this person? I took a guess. Obviously, it was wrong. Shocker there. But this has a very specific purpose as far as the history of Tillotson and who this young lady is. So, Charles, take it away.
Right. So this was a photograph of one of the first drone engines, probably credited with being the first drone engine. It was being built during World War II, and that is our carburetor on the bottom of it. And the model in there is someone very famous. This picture kind of more or less launched her career. She was a worker on the line, and the Army was coming through the line doing a little piece on this technology, and asked her to be the model. And she explained to the person, she agreed, of course, and explained that she wanted to get into acting. And the photographer suggested that she try modeling, and he introduced her to a modeling agency, and they liked her and brought her on, and she did very well. And eventually she got a movie contract, started doing a lot of movies. She changed the color of her hair, the color of her dress, not the color of her red lipstick, though. Do you want to make another guess?
Did she change to a blonde?
Yes.
Hmm.
Platinum blonde.
Yes. So I think I know who it is, but I'm going to let a listener sometime throughout the show make a guess as to who this is.
Okay.
Interesting. Very cool picture. Cool.
It is a really cool picture, actually.
So, Charles, you're currently the president of Tillotson, correct?
Yes, correct.
And what exactly is Tillotson's business? What is it they do?
We are a combination of things. Historically, we are a carburetor manufacturer, as probably most of your audience knows. We are most famous for our diaphragm style carburetors, although we've made virtually all different types of carburetors throughout the years, everything from cars to motorcycles to motorboats to stationary engines. But we became most famous for our handheld carburetors, largely because we invented or at least pioneered that industry. And in the last 10 years, we've actually started focusing very heavily on the karting market. So we've become known as not just a carburetor company, but we also manufacture our own engine now, karting engine. And we have partnered with IPK to bring a chassis and an entire go-kart package to the market under a racing series, a four-stroke racing series that we call the T4 series.
So I've had some experience with the T4, and I can thank Carol Ford over at EC Carburetors for that experience. And it's been a wonderful experience. I'm a two-cycle person, dyed in the wool, born, bred, raised two-stroke, right? So Carol calls me up, and he tells me about this great four-cycle, and If anybody could sell it, it's you, Christy. You could sell ketchup to a little girl in a white dress. And he hooked you and I up as an acquaintance and said, "Hey, you need to talk to Charles. Charles talked to you, and the rest is history." It truly is one of the most impressive 4-cycle packages I've ever seen. I'm not a big, big I'm not gonna say I'm not a supporter of 4-cycle. Obviously, it's served a huge niche in our market, but it's just not what I grew up doing. But as far as a 4-stroke, or as what we call them, diggers, let me tell you, that thing's got some snap to it. This is a complete package if nobody's ever seen a T4. It is totally spec, everything from the tires, axle, wheels, seat. I think, every nut and bolt on it is pretty well spec. It is a wonderful program. Engine is sealed. They have a 225cc senior engine. Now, is that the same engine that you also use for the junior program?
For the junior, also uses the 225. We put a restrictor on the carburetor for it. And then we have a cadet class, which uses our 196 engine, cadet or mini, depending on what part of the world you're in, what you call it. And then we have a Bambino class now that we just recently introduced, which uses a 105cc engine.
So you do have 105. So I for some reason I kept thinking the 196 was the smallest that you had.
No, we have a 105cc now, which is relatively new, and it's finding its way into the U.S. now also.
So you actually have a T4 program for all ages. And what's the youngest starting point for that class?
5 years old. 5 to 8 is the Bambino, as we call it. 7 to I think it's 12 is the cadet mini. 12 to 16 is the junior, and 15 on up is the senior. And then we generally have a senior heavy and masters category that generally runs with the seniors, or runs with the 165, 168 category.
So right there's a graphic on screen that shows you the blue revolution. And the blue, as soon as I saw the cart in the crate, it was like Richard Petty blue. And it's sharp. It's a really nice looking package. It is CIK FIA homologated, correct?
Correct. We just got our CIK FIA homologation on the chassis, and we are also, our engine is also.
Charles, come back.
Oh, I'm gone again. I'm here.
Test 1, 2.
Yep.
Oh, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I hear you.
Test 1, 2.
Not hear you.
Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you see
Can
me?
hear
Okay.
Jeff DeShane, you can hear him?
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2.
There he is.
All right. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
There we go. We're back on it.
All right.
All right. So we were just discussing the graphic.
Yep. Yep. The graphic. You were commenting on how it's petty blue. It's actually a Tillotson blue. That is actually it has historically, well, at least for the last 60 years or so, been one of the blue colors that we use. That light blue color. Pantone 300 is the Pantone number.
Oh, Pantone 300.
Yep. And you made a comment about how you like that you're a two-stroke racer and you feel that it's like one of the best packages out there. I will tell you that is by design. That is one of the great benefits of our team is we have employed within our team national champion race car kart drivers, all of whom grew up driving two-stroke. And when we first started down the path of thinking about doing an engine, let alone the complete chassis, the big hesitation was the same as yours. Four-stroke, we don't want to do four-stroke.
Right.
We want to stick in two-stroke. But you also mentioned Carol. With Carol's help, we developed this engine, this 225 engine that really gave a lot of torque at the bottom and a higher top speed than what was traditionally out there in the clone category or in the Briggs category, and just made it a much more enjoyable driving experience, we think, than the typical four-stroke. I don't want to say anything bad about the four-stroke, but made it feel more like a two-stroke than a four-stroke racing experience. And then we partnered with IPK to develop the chassis so that it was, so to even make it even feel more that way. The chassis is a very light chassis. It is based on the standard IPK homologated chassis. And when you put the two together, they work really well. And is what makes it feel like the two-stroke racing, as close as you can get to a two-stroke racing experience, we think, with the four-stroke. And our guys tested the heck out of it. I mean, it went through several iterations before they got finally happy with it. And they did get finally happy with it, and they love driving it. They actually think it's just the greatest thing out there.
Well, I know that we had the package here, and one of our customers, Jeff Burkhalter, purchased a package. He purchased it under the guise that it was his wife's. His wife. I don't think Tisha ever sat in it. I know she never turned a lap in it. But Jeff liked it as well, and he was coming out of a 206. Our team manager then drove the chassis at our little track in Jackson. It's extremely tight. Old school track. If you can drive there, you can drive anywhere. And he had a blast. He came in, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "That was a lot of fun." And he typically is not a four-stroke person. And he was very complimentary of the chassis. He was very complimentary of the engine program. Now, I know here in the United States, you guys run the RLV style exhaust. Is there a reason for that versus the European?
Not specifically. We worked with RLV, and we seem to like that exhaust. We thought it actually gave a little better performance. There is some talk now about going to the European style exhaust here. But we're also working with changing a little bit with the exhaust style with RLV. I'm not 100% sure what we're deciding on for next year on the exhaust.
Okay. I know that we played with both here, with the European style and the RLV, and obviously we love anything from RLV. They do a wonderful job. Maybe they could possibly come up with a very similar style, like you said, you're redesigning some things, very similar style exhaust as to more European with the longer exhaust. It seemed to have a little more top end to it, at least at our track and our experience. That doesn't mean it's going to happen that way everywhere, right? But I also understand that you run that European style exhaust on all of your engine packages. So I'm only familiar with the 225. What can you tell me about the exhaust on the other packages? Are they also RLV in this country?
I believe everything in this country to now has been the RLV exhaust. You can do the local guys in the U.S. have some degree of flexibility in changing some of their local rules and their local options. Like we do allow the engine to be run by itself here in the U.S. so that you don't have to run it as part of a spec series. It runs as what they call the 225 series. But there is benefit to running the whole package together.
Right. When you guys have all these little sectors throughout the world that have these packages, you are still the only four-cycle manufacturer that is offering a world championship, correct?
Yes, as far as I know, we are. Yes, that's correct.
So we are very happy to be able to award Cameron Reed a ticket to the T4 Nations Cup in Valencia, Spain 2 years ago.
Yep.
And she was so darn excited. And I told you when she came, she's the real deal. That girl can wheel a cart. So we packaged her up, and her dad took off for Valencia, Spain. They had never done any form of international competition, and I have never been so excited to see somebody put a cart on the pole. We were at NOLA Motorsports Park at our shop there, and we're in Derek Warco's trailer watching the feed with our team, and I'm like, "She just put that on the pole. Would you look at that?" Um, excuse me. It was absolutely thrilling. It was tight. The competition was extremely competitive. She had she had people from all over the world gunning for her, and we were so proud of her, and I hope that she's able to return again because I know that she's looking for vindication. Last year, she struggled a little bit, but I
Yeah.
know that she's definitely looking at returning. Um,
Well, the first year she was there, the U.S. actually won. We call
yep,
we call this
yep,
race the Nations Cup, and that's because people are competing not just for their own glory, not just for their own podium, but they're also competing as a country. So every country has their team there, and you accumulate points based upon how your drivers do, depending on the top. It's the top three in each, the top three across each category. Accumulates points, and that year the U.S. won it.
So, when you guys look at facilities to choose for the Nations Cup, what exactly are you looking for? Because I
Yeah,
know that you're leaving Valencia, you've been there for a couple years,
yeah.
and next year or this coming year will be in Ireland, correct?
No, we
Ooh.
are in theory staying in Valencia. I mean, I'm sure all of you have seen all the rains and flooding they've had in
Yeah.
Valencia. And that has wiped out a lot of areas. I mean, the Miami finals were supposed to be in Valencia a few weeks after us, and they got heavily affected by it, so they've had to move it to Zuera. We think we'll still be in Valencia next year. Um, the criteria that we have for choosing a location is it has to be somewhere where the facility is big enough to handle the type of race that we're running. This year we had 200 plus drivers there, and I think next year we're looking at somewhere around 250
Mhm.
as capping out there. So we have to have a big enough facility for that. And because we're the ones supplying all, or not all, but most of the equipment, some people are allowed to bring their own equipment, but we have packages where people can rent there. We have to have the ability to store it there for a period of time beforehand and then afterwards to break down the event. So it has to be a facility where we have the kind of time. It's really about a 2-week process, a week to set up and a week to tear down.
So, when you look at these facilities, do you ever think that we might be able to bring that to the United States?
Absolutely. The guys down in Florida, it's called the T4 complex, Cartplex, and there is a hope one year to be able to bring it there or somewhere else in the U.S. I think Chris McCrone is building a track in Lorain, Ohio. They're going to be running all T4 stuff. It's going to be a state-of-the-art track there. That is going to be a major possibility for us. Adams Motorsport Park on the West Coast
California,
is
yeah.
is also a possibility. One of the issues that we have is we need the local sponsor, the local track, if it's not something that we're running, to be able to help us again
Put on
store
the
the equipment, but also get rid of it, move it, sell it. We generally have everything subscribed for, so that's not a huge issue anymore. As we're getting more and more popular, all our dealers are taking all the stock that we have at the T4 and basically selling it immediately. But
Mhm.
that was one of our big logistic concerns, is that if we didn't sell the equipment, what are we going to do with it? We can't move it. We don't have a place to store it necessarily in the U.S., although there are some options there. But moving it back to Ireland was a non-starter for us.
So, how long has the T4 actually been in existence?
The T4 series has been in existence for, I want to say, 6 years, 6 years, depending on how you count it. When we started the engines versus officially the whole package together, we ran the T4. We ran it as the T4 World Cup twice in Ireland first. And then we moved it to Spain, and the FIA wouldn't let us use the name World Cup anymore, so we changed it to the Nations Cup. and we've run it there 3 times now. So 5 years total in that form.
So basically, this just came out probably a year or two before you and I were introduced,
Yep.
and I explained that this is a very heavily populated Briggs and Stratton territory, and
Yes.
they've been here longer. They've got a bigger foothold. They've got a great product. 206 is definitely earned
Absolutely.
its
No
earned its
question.
stripes here in the United States. That's for darn sure. And they're slowly starting to infiltrate little portions here and there overseas. Where do you think the divide is between bringing the T4 that's very well received overseas and in worldwide competition and events? What do you think is the issue with bringing this stateside and making it more popular? Because I know as a dealer, it's been a hard sell for me only because people are concerned about where else they can race it.
Yes.
And I hate when people say that because unless you're part of the movement, nothing's going to move.
Yes, that is clearly the big issue. People want to buy the package and they want to race. There's no
Right.
question about that. And the other thing is, I mean, the 206 is a great engine. And the Ignite series is a good series. We are a little bit faster than that, so we appeal to people who want to go have a slightly higher skill level at racing, and they want to kind of move up into that, but they're not quite ready to take on the two-stroke racing categories, either because of cost or skill level. So that is sort of the gating factor for us, and it is exactly what you said. People want to be able to race. So our approach has been to kind of focus our efforts in places where we start. So we started in the Florida area. The Orlando track kart club and the kart track there started taking it on. They've built up now a very large following in and around the Florida area. And then the West Coast, we developed a pocket there. There's a couple places in Oregon or Washington at the kart series up there, at the kartplexes up there. As I said, in Ohio, the Lorraine track that's planning to open up sometime next year is going to be taking it on. So we are expanding methodically in the U.S. And we don't really see us as taking business away from Briggs. So far, as they haven't seen a fall off from our presence here, and I don't really expect them to either. I think our mission is to grow the market. And by the way, we supply Briggs components. We supply them the PVL ignition system and flywheels. I don't know how long they'll keep using them for. I hear they've announced a new flywheel and an ignition system, but we support that race package just as much as we support all the two-stroke racing packages out there with our carburetors.
So, and I can only speak from my own personal experience with the equipment. We have not had a failure. And that chassis got some hours on it. It's been passed around like a cheap date on prom night. She's had a lot of butts in that seat, and every one of them came out with, you know what, that was a lot of fun. And I think that as with any four-stroke, it's easy to use, it's easy to maintain. It's not like a two-stroke where you're taking it apart every, let's say a KA, 12 to 15 hours and doing the top end. And after 5 or 6 events or even less, you're doing the bottom end.
We got Jake on. Do you want to bring him in or hold
Yeah,
that
give me
off?
1 second. Hi,
Yeah.
Jake, hold on. And I like the fact that it's an entire package, sealed engine, everything's spec. It seems to be that seems to be the wave that competitors are going with. They're not coming into this sport with the mechanical aptitude that we saw a generation ago.
Yeah.
And I think that spec program where everything's done, this cart comes complete, folks. I mean, it comes clutches on it, chains on it, gear comes with it. It's really a nice package, and it is a CIK style cart. If you've ever had a CIK style cart, you know they're darn nice. Um, let's talk about the T4 track. So for anybody who has raced in Florida, Florida Winter Tour, SCUSA, Rock, so on and so forth, you guys are familiar with the track there in Palmetto, correct, Charles?
Yes, it's in Palmetto. Yep.
And this was the Anderson Raceway and is now the T4
Yep. T4 Kartplex, it's called. Yep.
And this particular facility is run by Jake Motas
Yep.
and Cart Rising, and
Yep.
they are also your warehousing and distribution center for this portion of the United States, correct?
Correct.
Awesome. And let's go ahead and grab Jake real quick. Hey, man, how are you?
What's up, guys? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Sorry for the headphones. It's a little loud here.
So I understand you guys are doing some racing tonight, and you have a bunch of T4s there.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your program.
Yep. So tonight we've got our league program, and we use the Tillotson rental carts. The T4 rental cart uses the same engine, same platform that the standard T4 cart and all the whole line uses. And so far they've been great. We've got 12 of them now. We've got another 25 coming.
Wow.
And we've got a really big group of people out here racing.
So as you guys can see, this place is all badged up with T4 banners and paraphernalia. This brand has really gotten behind promoting themselves here in the United States. Jake has done a phenomenal job. I know when we go to the big track at Daytona last year, there was, gosh, what'd you guys have? 8 to 12 of them back there on the fence?
Yeah, and that's in the road racing arena of karting. Where we haven't quite we haven't had a big push yet.
Have you guys?
But Daytona's a great event. We love it.
Who doesn't like Daytona, right? Now, have you guys gotten the opportunity to take them over to the sprint track at all during Kart Week? Oh, lost him.
Yeah, I think he walked out of range of wherever he was.
There he is.
We're back.
So I was asking, have you had any success at all, or maybe in the future bringing the T4 to Kart Week at Daytona for the sprint track?
It's not something that we've entertained yet, but it's something we'd love to do if there's somebody out there who's listening and it's something they're interested in. We've got a huge following in Florida. But between our track, the track in Palm Beach, the new PK Race Park, and Orlando, we probably have 200-300 racers, all with the engines who are ready to do something. The smallest car count we've had in Orlando for any club races here is 28 drivers. So it's been between 28 and 34 drivers in the T4 senior class.
So Mike Tetro, Kevin Williams, if you guys are listening, who's your trustee in Florida? Do you know?
No clue.
I'll find out.
Idea.
Maybe we can get something kicking around a little bit. And, I know that a lot of these series, they've been loyal to Briggs and Stratton, and there's no reason why that loyalty couldn't continue. But if you've got racers that are willing to bring in another product and support it, why not offer them the opportunity to run, 2 different classes? That's twice the entry fees. That's twice the people on the grid. That's promoting the sport and growing it. I think it would be a wonderful thing.
And honestly, the Tillotson is so fast now. It's, I think Charles said this earlier, it's not even really a competitor to the Briggs. It's a supplement to it. So it's something where you can get started. You can run both. You can run the 206 class and you can run the T4 class. On an average track, our track is around 0.7 miles. It's a 46-ish second track. And the Tillotson is about 2 to 3 seconds faster per lap. So it's a big upgrade in terms of speed, and the reliability is very, very similar. And obviously the cost is similar.
So I know that the engine package has seen a few upgrades. Was it head and ignition?
Yeah, this year we introduced the upgrade that Tillotson offered, and that increased the reliability and also increased the speed at the same time. Believe that or not. But
also the tires. We've upgraded the tires with Maxxis. Maxxis is a very close partner with us and sponsor for our events, and they developed a new tire that's a little more grippy. And one of the advantages of that new tire is that it handles light rain very well. Not a downpour. You're still going to want to be on wets in a downpour, but when you're in that kind of space where it's raining and the track is getting a little wet and you're not sure if you want to switch to wets or stay on the dries, this new tire kind of solves that problem for you because you really don't need to switch.
And you see all that badging in the background? That's exactly what we need to see. That needs to go everywhere those packages go. I know that Cole Pashane last year did a hell of a job at Daytona. He put it out front, right? And he had a whole clan over there. They were having fun, high-fiving and carrying on. If there's anybody I wanted to go party with in the 4-stroke group, it was definitely that bunch. They put on a great show. They had a good time, and I've seen that class grow over the last couple years. 2, 3 years ago when we were at Daytona, I think I saw 4 or 5 of them there from the Palmetto area, and last year there was 10. So, this is something that's definitely growing and creeping into the little feeder series, getting into these bigger tracks, and the fact that they took a sprint chassis and boom, just cold turkey, went to a big track, and it performed very well.
And that was
You
on
know,
the full T4 spec as well. That wasn't open axles, open wheels. It was just the
Yep.
go-kart the exact same way we run it. T4 series completely spec, and that was straight onto the
Just
road race.
change
Obviously
gear
with
and
the
go
sprocket
run.
change.
Yep. That's all. That makes it so much easier for anybody, and we even do that with the 2-cycle stuff. I tell people if you've got an FIA CIK package and you're racing it, if you're racing on a sprint track, we can take you to the road race track with very few safety upgrades. Nothing on the cart has to be touched other than changing out bolts that you can safety wire for the brake system, and other than that, it's let her rip. So I'm
That's right.
glad that Tillotson found it a very easy way to transition into a much bigger arena.
Well, one thing you mentioned there, Christy, that I want to glom onto is you use the word fun. And that to
Yeah.
us is actually one of our driving forces and our missions in this whole T4 package is it is about the competition, particularly at the driver level, because there is not really a lot on the mechanic level that there's a competition over. But for us, it's really important that the racers have fun while they're competing. And when we do the Nations Cup, for example, everybody is under one, or depending on how many people we have, 2 tents by country, and they're all mingling together and interacting with each other. And then there's a lot of talk going on, and a lot of trash talking, and but also a lot of hugging and support for everybody. So
You gotta talk smack. You gotta have that
you
grid.
gotta talk a little smack. But the fun part of it is critical for us. We want to make sure people are enjoying the sport as much as they are competing in the sport.
So anybody that's going down to the Florida Winter Tour, you're going to be down there for, December, January, February. Don't forget to go over to Palmetto, go to the old Anderson track that's now the T4 Kart Complex. And
T4 Kartplex.
see, there you go, T4 Complex. But go over and ask Jake, say, "Hey, let's see these beasts. Let's go ahead and get in it." And don't be afraid to give your input to people, because that's how this sport grows. People need to give more positive feedback and less negative feedback. And if you really love the sport, you really want to help it. Help people learn about these other products, because without it, the sport doesn't grow, and nobody's going to be, at a disadvantage by you spreading the word about something good. And that's why we do this podcast. So,
Well said,
we like to
Christy.
share these things that we have found throughout the industry and the people that help make it happen. Like I say, the movers, the shakers, the risk takers, because, putting that product together up against a giant like Briggs and Stratton and some of the products they've put out is a risk. And the product that you put out is absolutely phenomenal in every way.
Well said, Christy. Well, on that note,
Thank
guys,
you.
Christy, thank you very much for letting me showcase our facility
Your
here.
facility looks amazing. Thank
Charles,
you
it was great
so
to see
much.
you virtually, and good luck with the rest of your podcast, guys. It was nice
Good
checking
luck
in.
in December.
I'll see you at PRI.
All right, guys. See you
Happy
soon.
Oh,
Thanksgiving.
don't rub it in. I can't go. Darn it. Darn it. So let's talk about PVL just a little bit.
Okay.
Coming into karting in 77 is when I got my first national license. And that was when I first saw, I was still running a Mac 49 down at Michelle's Cartway in Florida. And we didn't really have that big influx down there, at least that I saw, of European engines yet. But the McCullough was still running a Tillotson carburetor, correct?
Possibly, if not an actual Tillotson, one that they copied off of us.
There you go. And then, as we saw more and more of these European engines coming in, now we see the introduction of PVL.
Okay, yes.
Let's talk a little bit about PVL.
Well, PVL is a German manufacturer. They started. When were you saying, in the 70s?
I started in 77.
Yeah, they started in that time frame. They were a spinoff from another ignition company nearby in the middle part in the Bavaria, or in the south, what they call the south of Bavaria part of Germany. And we bought them out of insolvency 4 years ago in 2020. Well, actually, right in the middle of COVID. It was a crazy deal.
At a bargain.
I did not. I didn't. I mean, I did all the due diligence. I did all the investigation remotely over with a camera with Andreas, our general manager over there. Completely could not visit the facility because we couldn't travel over there during the time period. Yeah, they were part of a larger group. They had a die casting operation and they had a wire harness company. Wow. And the wire harness company is what got them into trouble. They were fixed with one heavy with one customer that they ended up losing, that took the product and went overseas basically. And that caused them to and the whole company was sort of cross defaulted with all the banks and everything, and the banks kind of lost interest in working with them anymore, which is really unfortunate because the ignition side and the flywheel side was in good shape. Perfectly a very well run, very profitable company, and they were a critical supplier to us as well as to Briggs, actually. And Briggs itself was in bankruptcy at the same time. And we were afraid they were going to go away and we would have no ignition system. The alternative was Soletra, but they were not a good choice for us because there was a big tooling charge we'd have to use them. So we kind of just took a chance and bought them. And it's been a great partnership, actually. They've helped us. Jake was referencing the new package. The new package includes a 7,500 RPM coil. So you're revving at an even higher rate. And they helped us develop that. They helped us develop the coil for the original engine. They really bring another element to the engine side of development that we have never really had.
So when you purchased PVL, let's talk about any of the companies that you're currently involved with.
Okay.
You are not a go-karter.
No, I was not to begin with. I do like to drive them though now, and I like to tell people I like our product to be idiot proof, and I'm the idiot who drives it.
You're the test idiot. Okay.
Exactly.
Now I get it. So you were not a go-karter. It's not like you had a passion for smaller motorsports, and this is, how you were going to contribute. So what part of these two companies did you sit down one day at dinner and look at your wife and say, I'm going to go buy Tillotson?
Well, I didn't buy Tillotson.
Our family's going to get involved in PVL. What did that happen?
Well, okay, let me go back one step, okay? My father bought Tillotson in 1984. It was part of Borg Warner, and it was part of it was the Tillotson, Marvel Schebler Tillotson division. So the Marvel name, the Schebler name, and the Tillotson were all combined into one group. But Marvel and Schebler were mostly cars and other things. And when carburetors went out of cars, they didn't really want it anymore. But the Tillotson side, which again focused mostly on the handheld stuff, was still a viable operation. And without going into all the details, they had nobody else to buy it. It's one of these situations where they couldn't sell it to anybody else. And so my father, without having any real money, shoestring this deal together. He got Borg Warner. He got the banks to lend him some money, and he got Borg Warner to guarantee it. And we took it over. I came in. I took over Tillotson in about 2007, just at the point where this FIA, the CIK at the time, was introducing the homologation of the carburetor separate from the engine. Up until that point in time, the carburetor was chosen by the engine manufacturer and was homologated as part of the engine. But now it was going to be its own animal. And I didn't really know too much about karting at the time. It was was an important part of our business, but it was not one that we really focused on. And the more I got into looking at it, the more I began to really like it. Fundamentally, why? Because in the racing world, you are rewarded for performance, pure and simple. You build a better product, you put it out there at a reasonable price, and people buy it. There is no issue. You're not dealing with OEs that are trying to grind you down to the cheapest price out there. Who don't care about quality, who care about quality, but take your product and give it to somebody. It is the marketplace at its finest. And I just really like that model. And I saw it as a way forward for us to expand. And as we started expanding in the carburetors, we actually have another division that makes, it's a much larger company actually, that makes air conditioning compressors for heavy duty trucks and buses. And those air conditioning compressors are effectively an engine, that's pistons and compression. And the only thing it's missing is an ignition system and a flywheel. And our head engineer in that department said, yeah, we could build an engine, no problem. So we started looking at building our own engines, which was not necessarily a racing engine at first. But then again, as I said, with Carol's help, we developed this particular racing engine. And then it expanded into the whole racing. And it got to be the point where people love our brand. They love the message that we had, or at least that was my perception out there. And so it's like, let's just keep going. Let's just see how far we can take this thing.
Well, I think that you have taken it into areas that probably would not have been previously explored. That's for sure.
I will tell you, when I told everybody we should build an engine and we should run our own race series, not everybody, but a lot of the people on my team thought I was crazy, which sometimes I am.
Hey, you don't have to be crazy to do this, but it sure helps.
Who was it? I saw there was I was running through my TikTok feed. I do like TikTok, but the latest thing was the difference. There's no difference between courage and ignorance. And that's what makes life difficult.
That's true. That's true. So you have, tell me about the future. You have obviously a plan for 2025 and beyond. What does that look like?
For now, it is expanding in the T4 series, trying to continue to build our network around the world, leverage off of the fact that we are now a fully homologated package out there, to continue to bring racing to the grassroots and grow the sport from that level. We're in, I think, 50 countries now. We have something like over 1,500 or 2,000 drivers. So we're probably the fastest growing four-stroke racing, maybe the fastest growing even karting category. Of course, we started at zero, so that's not, it's easy when you start at zero. But to just to continue to grow that and develop the experience, that's part of what this is all about.
Do you have any idea what you're selling as far as annual sales, or what you've sold to date of the T4 package?
Well, this year we came across our 1,000th cart.
Oh, wow.
So that was very exciting. It's on display. The IPK guys did a beautiful
that's right.
package for I think I sent that. Yep. They did it sitting in our lobby in Ireland, sitting there all beautiful and shiny. We shine it up every week to make sure it's glowing. We're very proud of that. I think we've already crossed the 1,500 mark now.
That was quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to keep track of. Honestly, I think the market is 20,000 units a year. That's what I think it is.
Wow,
worldwide.
That's ambitious.
It requires growing the sport to do it, but I think it can be done.
Now, I also understand. Well, I know. I don't understand. I know it. You guys have a tremendous T4 oil. Is
Yes.
that something that you formulate in-house, or is that something that you have made?
Those another partner. See, one of the things we really do here. I'm glad you mentioned that. One of the things that we like to do in this sport is partner with all the people that we know and respect, and that oil was developed for us by Ceramic,
Oh,
and
really?
they have been a supporter of us from the very beginning. Right from the very first T4 World Cup, they have supported us. They helped us develop this oil. There's a break-in oil, there's a running oil, it has anti-cheating technology in
I
it.
was just gonna mention that.
Yep,
Yep,
it's
yep.
great. It's really good, and it's affordable. It's not like, it's more expensive than the standard oil, than a WD-4, or a 1030 or whatever it is
Right,
out
what you're
there.
buying off the, local O'Reilly shelf.
Yeah, exactly. But it's racing, and so it's not so crazy expensive for that, and you get performance for it. Again, that's one of the things that we try to do is bring. Racing is expensive, but if you're getting value for your money, then it's worth it, and that's what we try to do with those kinds of things out there, is make the whole experience a little bit better than just run-of-the-mill product out there.
So, what is your goal for 2025 here in the United States?
For 2025, I would like to see us get up and running in Lorraine. I would like to see us continuing to expand in the southeast and the west and the whole West Coast. We don't have a really good importer or dealer up in the Northeast yet. I would love to find somebody up there who can take on the project up there and help us expand up there. I'd like to see us open up a couple of new tracks that are running the T4. So again, basically, for the fundamental issue of the more places you have to race, the better, the more fun it
That's
is
right.
for everybody.
And, the Ohio market, speaking of Lorraine, there's another track that just became operative in Canfield. Well, I think it's Salem, technically. I used to live 2 miles from this facility, a Quaker City drag strip. Um, Ohio, I grew up there. That's where I cut my teeth. And we had so many racetrack, you couldn't spit and not hit 4 of them, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And we've had some tracks leave and come back, and we've had a couple be rebuilt. I'm glad to see the rebirth of karting in the United States, especially in Ohio, because that was the birthplace of WKA. Their office was just down the road from where I grew up in Akron, Ohio. And I think that it's kind of ironic that the largest growth spurt as new track development goes is in Ohio. So, I'm kind of proud of them. We did all right.
yeah,
I just wish some of those tracks were down here where I'm at. Hopefully we'll get this one pulled together here very soon.
yeah.
But, I understand the frustration of a racer when they say, "But there's no place to race it."
Yep.
Well, we're road racers. There's not a track that we don't go to that's not 10 to 16 hours drive, and we only run a few times a year.
Yes.
So, I understand their frustration, but if you wanna race, you're gonna get up and go.
Yep.
Um, and we haul our equipment for other people on our team, so we try to make it as affordable as possible for them to go to these events, and there's no reason why a bunch of guys couldn't get together and do the same thing. Everybody go in, buy some T4s, and you guys can go race all over the country at great tracks, not just backyard hoopty tracks. Um, Now the T4, not necessarily the T4, but the Tillotson engine program is also being used, especially the 225 in dirt racing, correct?
Yes, actually, and what they use mostly in dirt racing is they buy the short block, which
Yeah.
is, basically no flywheel, no ignition, just the core engine, and then they kit it out however they want it, for their own racing programs. Yes.
So, years ago, we had the Tecumseh, the big 10 horse. That thing
Ugh,
was like a giant blue boat anchor. That thing
yeah.
was heavy, but it had some snort to it. And yeah, I would imagine that they were doing that with the Tecumseh back then. I can only imagine they're doing it very similarly with the 225 program. Um, is there any particular portion of the market you would like to see just the engine be a little more active?
Um, I like the spec series. I think in the dirt market, that market, people like to
Tinker.
and so that is a good market for the engine only area, because they're a bunch of wildcatters or whatever you want to call them. They just like to
We're going to call them
outlaws. That's the word I was looking for. They're a bunch of outlaws, and they like to be outlaws. And I think that is the perfect place for people to be outlaws. The other place that we actually have a little bit of a focus on is kind of the more hobby market, the yard carters, the guys who are just building carts to run around their backyards. Their motor, they buy these mini bikes.
I was just going to say, I saw the 196 on the mini bike.
Yeah. And actually, some people are putting the 225. If you go to the Go Power Sports website, some people are putting the 225 on a drag racing mini bike. This thing is insane. I mean, it probably is doing 100 plus miles an hour down a drag racing track. So we support that program too.
I'll be dipped. There it is. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That thing is methanol Tillotson 263cc drag mini bike build and test.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to. That's saved for viewing later.
Yeah.
That's wild. Don't let any of the guys I work with and work for see that. Joe Boyd, oh man, please don't be watching this tonight.
Well, you can go watch a lot of stuff. Like the Cars and Cams guys do a lot of stuff with our.
Yep.
They're fun. They're fun to work with. Yep.
Good people. Obviously, we all think alike. So, do you have any parting comments? Anything you want to share additionally?
I want to encourage everybody who wants to go out and race to go out and do it. If you are interested in our stuff, come talk to us. If you're interested in other people's stuff, come talk to us. Really, I mean, it's really about growing the sport and growing the interest in racing. It's a family aspect, right? Because it really is a parent-child bonding experience to go out and go racing together at this level. There are not a lot of sports where you do that. You don't, unless your dad is the soccer coach or your mom is the soccer coach, you don't really, the parents don't really get involved with the kids in those kinds of sports, and the coaches don't want them involved. In motorsports, it's completely the opposite. The parents are an integral part of it. The kid really can't go anywhere and do anything without them being active in it. And we just think that's a wonderful thing. And the life lessons racing teaches you, I don't think you find those anywhere else. I mean, where else is it that you can get pushed off by somebody else in a race and you're leading the pack and you have to live with it? I mean, it's a great,
racing will teach you a great deal of humility.
Exactly.
I have my share.
Yeah, and just how bad stuff can happen sometimes, and it's not your fault, and you just got to get back up and get back out there again, and better. You'll do better the next time. It's it's great. It's funny, we were talking about the Nations Cup in the U.S. When the U.S. came over to the Nations Cup for the first time, this was when the year that they won it. This was, I think, their first year where they were there in real force, and the Europeans were kind of astounded at the American racing style, very aggressive, and they were kind of shocked by it. The next year, everybody was racing in that style. So you can see how this interaction of the different how the racing world all kind of feeds off of each other.
It's a big melting pot of ability.
It is. It's great.
Charles, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight. I appreciate all the information about your companies. People.
Wait, did you figure out who that picture was?
Right.
I'm not going to let you forget.
That's right. We have to talk about
Did anybody guess? I don't see any guesses in the chat.
Alan said Marilyn Monroe.
Correct.
Are you serious? Damn,
Yes.
I hate it when he's right. Arr.
That is correct. That was her first photograph.
I give you a Drive Your Line shirt.
Right. So I like to say we helped launch the drone industry and the racing career of Marilyn and the movie career of Marilyn Monroe. That's what I like.
That is cool. That is very impressive.
Yep.
Quick history. Tillotson was started in what year?
1914 in Toledo, Ohio.
There you go, in Toledo, Ohio. I said that to somebody today, and they went, what? I thought they were from Ireland.
No, that's where we are now. We moved to Ireland. Borg Warner moved the operation. Actually, they didn't just move it. They had multiple plants in the U.S., in Decatur, Illinois, in Blytheville, Arkansas, and in Ireland, in Tralee, Ireland. And Tralee was the focus of Tillotson, mostly the diaphragm carburetors, supplying most of the chainsaw companies and other European companies, Steel, Husqvarna, a bunch of Italian guys out there. And it was the low-cost manufacturing center for Europe at the time. That's why they set it up, which it is not anymore, believe me. But now it's a tax haven for everybody. But, whatever. Everything goes around and comes around. But, at the time, it was the low-cost manufacturing center for Europe. And that's why Borg Warner set it up there.
Really? That's an interesting fact.
Yeah.
Charles, I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything you're doing for our business. I love your product. Like I said, we have one. I look forward to helping it develop further in this area. Keep doing what you're doing and know that there are people in the sport that appreciate your products.
Well, great. Thank you so much. It's great talking to you as always. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. So there you go, folks. That is the last podcast. We're bringing this to a close for 2024. And over this time frame, we've not only had a president, CEO of a company, we've had the head and owner of a sanctioning body. We have had the person that was involved with CK&A South. We've had a 410 sprint car driver that started out as one of my old kart kids. We have had a legend in Lake Speed join us. We have had a plethora of people. We've had the Reeds and their series out in the Midwest join us, and we've just begun. This is only the start. And like I said at the beginning, the movers, the shakers, the risk takers are who formed the sport of karting, not only in America, but worldwide. And they're still at it today. If anybody can get me in a conversation with the Vintage Karting Association, let's do that. I definitely want to sit down and have a round table of all of our legends, and let's talk about karting and what their opinions are of where it came from and where it's going, and what they think that future, what our future is going to look like, and what the past was and what brought it into where we are today. Because I know karting, even in 77, was completely different than what we see today. I listened to a podcast. It was a podcast with Xander Clements and Lynn Haddock. And Lynn says, we didn't have pushbacks. We didn't have all these soft woo-woo body parts on carts. It was metal to metal. And when you hit somebody, it hurt like hell. But you know what? When you got mad with somebody, you talked to them in the scale line. Sometimes you took it behind the scale burn. But usually you talked it out and said, man, I got up underneath you. I'm really sorry. Or, you didn't need to run me over. What happened? And they would sit there, talk it out, and it was over with. Now we got to go to video. We got to talk to 10 people on the racetrack, 9 of which didn't see what happened, 2 of which don't want to get involved. And, I think that if we look back at the past every now and then, we actually make more sense about what our future is going to be. So I look forward to a continued podcast. Maybe I can get Xander on here soon. Xander Clements, I'm calling you out, bro. Other than that, I appreciate the time that I get to spend with you all. And I appreciate the time that you spend watching me. This is Christy Kendall signing off for 2024. We'll see you in Daytona. And until then, have fun. Go karting.